President Bleasner, feel free to open the meeting.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. Good evening. I would like to call to order the April 6th, 2020 Lake Washington School Board meeting. And please let the record reflect that all board members are present and are participating remotely. All meeting participants will also be joining this meeting remotely in alignment with current proclamation issued by Governor Inslee. The board meeting will be live streamed and is viewable on the district's website. If you're unable to live stream the meeting, you can call 425-936-2805 or 425-936-2809, i.e. 471-683, to listen to the meeting. This information is also available on our website. Just so you know, regular board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the Lake Washington School District website and posted for viewing within 2 days, as long as district staff are available to support these functions of board meetings. Please note that there will be no in-person public comment to ensure social distancing. All public comments need to be submitted to Diane Jenkins at djenkins@lwsd.org by 1 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. And these same procedures will be used for all of our board meetings scheduled in April. So with that, I will now entertain a motion to approve the April 6th agenda.
So moved.
Second. It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Sage that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, so our first item on the agenda tonight, as we go through our necessary and routine options, is recognitions. And so tonight we'd like to celebrate our libraries, and Cassandra Sage will be reading a proclamation proclaiming April 2020 as School Library Month. So Cassandra, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to read it off my phone because we have the technology. Whereas school libraries provide materials for teachers and students that will encourage growth and knowledge, and whereas the school library media specialist role is to provide the leadership and expertise necessary to ensure that the library program is an integral part of the instructional program of the school, and whereas school libraries provide materials to meet individual needs, varied interests, abilities, socioeconomic backgrounds, and maturity levels of the students served. And whereas school libraries provide materials that reflect the ideas and beliefs of religious, social, political, historical, and ethnic groups and their contributions to the American and world heritage and culture. And whereas the school library contributes to the individual growth and development of all students while fostering both excellence and equity in education. Therefore, we, the members of the Lake Washington School District Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2020 as School Library Month. And I would like to thank the King County Library for providing free reading materials for students. And I think staff members have more information on how to access that.
So I'd like to hand this off to Dr. Stavum, who's going to do a quick walkthrough about our school libraries in our new digital environment.
Yeah, proclamations feel a little different right now when we are not all in sight, but I think this one was particularly important to move ahead with because in our remote access, our libraries still play a huge role in helping our students continue their learning at home. And so I believe Mindy Mallon is on our meeting with us. I asked Mindy if she would just quickly show us the route of how to get to our online library resources, just so that people can see how to get there. And if they have a question, we can certainly answer that for families. But we want kids to keep reading. If there is one thing that families can do while kids are home to continue learning, that is reading every single day. And that's from our littlest students to our oldest students. Everybody needs to have a book in their hand or be read to every single day. And I don't know about you, but even as an adult, I love it when somebody reads to me. And whether it's online books, audio books, or somebody physically reading to you, older siblings reading to younger siblings reading to older siblings, all of those combinations. And I would love it if we would have people post pictures of themselves reading a favorite book or something that might be of interest to others for a resource for how you do that at home. But Mindy, I'm going to ask you to share your screen and just quickly show us how to get to those great library resources.
All right, let's see how I do here. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, so this is under students and families, and so this is actually under our it'll either be K-5 or 6-12 research and homework resources. And so each of our libraries at all levels have what we call a library catalog. So in the library catalog, they will list several different resources that students can access here, and some of those are just online resources, maybe different digital resources that are available. Some librarians, for example, if we look at Kirkland Middle, they have a book list that actually connects with KCLS, and then they have a link for KCLS. But all students, so there should be multiple places that a student can access the KCLS library resources or the portal. And so if you look on our homepage, you'll see that it's linked here. And this provides ebooks for our students and a whole multitude of databases for our students to access. They also offer tutoring for students, and so they are a wealth of information for us. All of our students, what they would do is they first come on and they find a resource. So for example, if I'm going to check here under ebooks for downloadable audiobooks for teens, I would then select a book. And I'm just showing this in case some of our family members out there maybe have not seen how this works. So if we go to the Book Thief, you have to select a resource and then it will ask you to borrow. And then once you borrow is where the students would then put in their library card and their PIN number. So their library card is 414 for our district, and then their student ID. And the PIN is the last 4 of their student ID. So if a student was to have any trouble getting in and accessing these resources, they could connect their school librarian and she will help them get access to the resources. But again, there may be different places that they will access these resources. It will either be here on our home page for our research and homework resources, or they might get it off of their school library PowerSchool Learning page. So a couple different places they can access them.
Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you.
Questions for Mindy while we have her there?
I just wanted to make sure that parents who maybe are checking books out to read to their kids know where exactly they can find that student ID number. I think you said PowerSchool.
So the student ID number would be something that a student has. Like all students use their student ID number. If they didn't know what their student ID was, then they could call or email their teacher or their librarian. Either one of those people would be able to help them get that information.
So it's not anything that's actually listed somewhere else that parents are used to looking at?
No,
Okay.
no, it's considered private information.
Gotcha.
So we publish them.
Thank you.
When you go into the KCLS resources, it actually creates an account for students, and so it tracks the books that they're reading. Sorry, I don't know if I'm sorry, I thought I was off. It tracks the books that they are reading, and so it becomes their personal space within the KCLS library. So it helps parents know what books is my child accessing, what are those that are on hold for them, that type of thing.
Super, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mindy, we'll ask you to unshare your screen and I will turn it back over to President Bleasner.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Would also like to say libraries in general are great resources for everything. Research projects, you have a question, my favorite thing was always to ask a librarian what suggestions they might have, in which I could find information and they could give me a whole list of things. So this is a great opportunity to be able to use those resources. So thank you very much to our school librarians and all they do and being able to integrate all of that. Our next item on the agenda is public comment. There was none currently sent in for this time. We have received emails and comments from parents that have been responded to in different ways, a lot around the educational resources and continuous learning opportunities, as well as some of the distance learning. and more information will be coming out about that as things come through. So the next item is the consent agenda, and I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Sage to approve the consent agenda. Dr. Stavum, could you pull the board?
Director LaLiberty,
Yes.
Director Sage,
Yes.
Director Carlson,
Yes.
Director Stewart,
Yes.
President Bleesner.
Yes. Excellent. It's important to get that business of the district, work of the district out of the way so that we can move on and keep everything moving the way we need to. So the next item on our agenda, as there is nothing on the non-consent agenda this evening, as we focus really on the business priorities to keep the district moving along, we will have the superintendent report on the updates with our school closures. So Dr. Stavum?
Yes. Well, this afternoon, as you know, we heard the proclamation by Governor Inslee that effectively closes our schools in our state for the rest of the school year, and that's closing our physical locations. But we know that that does not keep us from continuing with our plans to deliver remote instruction. And we know that, at least for me personally, it kind of felt like a gut punch this afternoon. I think we've all kind of been holding our breath, thinking, well, maybe we'll just be able to extend into May. Maybe we'll be able to, kind of come back at some point. And so I think there's probably a lot of emotions around our district today, from disappointment to frustration to happiness and everything in between, as people are just really coming to terms with what this means. This is a school year unlike any, I think, any of us have ever experienced before. So we're going to keep moving ahead, and we have already laid out the plans of our district. We've had questions, but why are you doing anything for learning, all the way to why aren't you doing more? And so we are trying to move forward purposefully with planning that makes sure that when we do move to a much more robust version of our online delivery, that we are ready to do that. We're ready with our devices, with our infrastructure, with our bandwidth, with the resources that teachers are working on right now, and that we're going to do this the right way so that we can see this through for the duration of our school year, which is another good solid 2 months. And so we've got a lot going on, and we have asked people to do things very, very quickly. This is not a normal time frame. And I want to remind people that this is while everyone is at home, including our teachers. We have teachers who are doing meetings with their colleagues in preparation with babies in tow. We have people who are responsible as caregivers for elderly parents right now, who have many people in a household potentially trying to be on their internet, and everybody is doing the very, very best they can, but these are not normal circumstances. And I want to make that really, really clear. This isn't like having a year's preparation to take an entire system of over 40,000 people online in a completely different environment. And so I want to give a shout out to all of our staff for all the ways that they've been working to prepare instruction for our students so that we can make good on what our governor is asking us to do in our school district. Very, very proud. So tonight we're going to have another couple of specific updates in preparation now for what is going to be a longer closure. And we have some key points to make both for instruction as well as online learning in terms of technology. The other thing that I just want to say before I forget at the end of this is we know that there are all kinds of questions out there. One of the biggest is, what are we going to do about graduation? And right now we don't know, because we may have a little bit more flexibility by June to do some things with people gathering in some limited ways, but we don't know that yet. We're also going to plan to coordinate with our high school principals and some of their students, because I think students need to have a voice in what they want to do for graduation. They have all kinds of ideas, from let's delay this and see if we can do it as usual to let's do something virtually, but we need to hear from our kids before we make those decisions. So we'll be coordinating that with our high school principals and some student representatives. We also have questions about milestones and events like prom, like dances, like field day, and all of those things that kids associate with this time of year in their schools. And so for the most part, probably most of our events will be canceled for the remainder of the year. But there are a few that we may be able to do in a different way, or that we can push to next year. And even if you are heading into that next grade, there still may be some ways to do this spring's field day and next fall's beginning of the school year, and some other ways that our principals are going to help us work on with our kids. So we don't have all those answers. We'll be working on those, but we're going to do that with the people who are affected the most, and that's our kids. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Holman to share some slides with you specific to technology and access to technology and use of our current materials that are out there. And I think you'll see that we have a lot of people who are accessing our resources very, very well. And we are just going to continue to build those out as we move from what's been enrichment and online access to much more around instruction and work that can be counted for grading and credit as we move forward. And that's a very, very different switch from what we have been doing. So with that, Dr. Holman, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So can you see my presented PowerPoint here? Okay, great. That's in presentation mode, so I didn't know if that would show up correctly. So tonight, this is a presentation really looking at the technology support systems that we are actively working on, things that were in place before the closure, and really talking specifically about what are the things that we had to do because of the closure to modify some systems, upgrade some systems, and provide support for students, families, and staff. And so there's three distinct departments that I want to talk about tonight. First is our technology operations. They really work hand in hand with all of our departments to make sure that we're providing a safe and secure environment for our students to learn in, to provide a system of support for students, staff, and families, knowing that that support is part of that is professional learning. Part of that is the technology and hardware support. Sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's an online ticket. And then it's also to provide hardware and make sure that it's hardware that allows for access to resources for both learning and for work. We also have our technology integration department. That is the group that is tasked with ensuring that our teachers have really what they need to be able to teach students. And so when you think about some goals that they're focused on, it's about ensuring that staff have the training and resources to implement current and new technology systems, and to provide relevant support to ensure current and new learning systems are safe and secure for students, staff, and families. Another part of technology integration is that evaluation of any resource that we use with students to make sure it aligns with our requirements. And we have another branch of our technology systems. It's really our data research and accountability department. And so Tim Krieger and his team really work hand in hand with Mindy Mallon in technology integration, Sally Askman in technology operations, to make sure that our data systems are maintained and functioning at required levels, and that's current and moving forward, and to evaluate systems for students and staff in the data accounting to determine valid methods for collecting and reporting. Because while students aren't in school, we still have reporting obligations and things like that as we move forward. So when you think about the technology support that is required during the closure, Sally and her team had to really rethink, what does it mean to be a help desk support system for students, staff, and families? And so they actually developed a new student family help desk system, knowing that the questions that were going to be asked around technology support would be different. We've maintained our staff help desk process. And on this next slide, it shows how many questions have come in, or how many requests for help have come in since the closure. This is about a third more than what we typically receive during this time period. And you can see in that column of family access, that is that new family help desk support. And so families are accessing that. They're able to get their questions answered. You can see that 2/3 of those requests have already been answered, responded to, and closed. Those are all being tracked in a database so that schools know which of their families are asking questions for any follow-up later on as well. When you think about expanding access to technology and connectivity, we know that once the school closure took place, and now today, hearing that school will be closed for the remainder of this school year, that access to technology and connection to the internet is critically important. And so just a few data points for our students. We know that all of our secondary students are outfitted with a district issued and imaged laptop. I key on that word imaged because we create a student image, which means how the device is set up, which is specific to our network and our infrastructure. And that's an important part for later on in the presentation. Since the closure, we have outfitted 2,585 elementary students with a district issued and imaged laptop. Recently, we have just received another 192 requests that we will be working with those schools and families to make sure that they get those quickly. We have procured and received 500 hotspots, which is a Wi-Fi hotspot, meaning it accesses the internet for those families that may not have had that service at their house. We currently have 31 outstanding requests. We have another order that we have placed. We've actually procured and identified additional devices to bring into the district, and so we'll be able to fulfill the request for those additional 31 by the end of April. We're receiving a few extras, knowing that with school being now out for the remainder of the school year, we probably will have a few more requests that come in. We'll be able to fulfill those once we receive that next shipment. And we also know that our technology services departments are partnering with our assistive technology support group because they really are working collaboratively individually with any student or families that receive assistive technology supports, because for those students, they'll have very unique and targeted questions and support needs. For staff, we know that many of our staff are already outfitted with a district issued and imaged laptop. And so remote work and teaching for those staff, it's a little bit simpler. We also know that we have a number of staff that are what we would call a desktop worker. So at their work location, they actually have a desktop computer connected to their monitor, so something that isn't portable. We also have staff that they share a desktop computer, so they don't actually have a device that is directly allocated to them. We have a request process that has been communicated to all of our school sites and to the district, so that anyone that needs a laptop for remote work can have access to those. Sally and her team, when the school closure occurred and we started seeing more and more remote workers, they worked with Microsoft, procured an additional 500 staff laptops, and as of about a week and a half ago, they had received about a fifth of those. They're continuing to receive those. I don't have a specific update on how many are in our hands, but we know that in a short period of time, we'll receive all 500 of those, and we've allocated about 50 of those to staff through that request process. And so one of the things that as the school closure occurred and as we continued to evaluate the needs of both our staff and our students, and when we started thinking about new learning, new content, new curriculum access for students, that the need for streaming video, the need for video conferencing, all of those things would be a need. And when we architected our network and infrastructure here in Lake Washington, we partnered with Microsoft very closely to say what makes the most sense for our environment. And when you think about standard school environment, you have students here on site all day long. Students are then at home doing homework, accessing the network periodically. Our network was not developed and designed to have all of our students at the same time home accessing our network. So we kind of had to rethink a few things. Again, connect with Microsoft, get their experts here on site to do some additional work to make sure that we are prepared for that new learning and new content. And so one of the things we had to do was reconfigure our direct access. And what direct access is it's essentially the tunnel that traffic funnels through to ensure that it's going to appropriate sites, that it's accessing appropriate resources and applications and extensions and whatnot. One thing that Microsoft partnered with us was to whitelist, meaning to essentially give the thumbs up to a few different cloud resources so that those didn't have to go through our direct access tunnel. And that actually allows for a faster connection because it doesn't have to all tunnel back or channel back through our network here, because those are trusted resources. Because of this, we actually did have to expand what the team calls the server farm, and that's both hardware and virtual servers to make sure that we are prepared for the capacity and load that's going to be asked of it. And that was both for a student and staff access. We also, knowing that there are requests for additional types of student experiences, we had to actually update the group policies. And a group policy means when a device, either staff or student, is imaged, it's set up in a certain way. And anytime you need to change that, there's a couple of different ways to do that. The most unsophisticated terminology, you either touch the computer to update it, or through what's called Active Directory, you can push out those policies to all computers. Since all computers aren't on site, it led to a little bit different challenge, but the team was able to figure out how to update those group policies, and they'll be doing that so that students and staff have the access that they need. And just one data point, we added a 15 terabyte storage to manage increased content in video production. Because what we know is that while video production has been part of teaching and learning, it hasn't been to the degree that we're going to see over the next couple of months. And so we wanted to make sure that we were prepared and able to meet the demand of that load. Our data services team is critical to ensuring that our technology systems and support are maintained and continued. So when you think about the work that they're doing, it's collaboration between departments to make sure that the evaluation of student privacy and safety protocols for both web applications, platforms, remote working, all of those are very important aspects to kind of our new work environment and new learning environment for students. And there's a lot of nuances to making sure that as our teachers are teaching in new locations, as they are reaching out to students in different ways, that all of those venues are safe for our students and staff and data that they're exchanging. Data services, they're also developing plans for collecting new student enrollment information, because we know right now there's a number of families reaching out saying, hey, we need to enroll for next year, either a new kindergarten student or we're moving to the area, and how do we enroll? And so data services and the team, they're developing that plan right now to be able to collect that information in the virtual world, and actually that will be a benefit moving forward because it will actually revise a paper process and move it to a digital process, which is something we've talked about for a number of years. This really just forced us to think about it a little bit quicker, and the team is doing a great job of getting that in place. We also have federal and state reporting requirements that are required, and so that team is continuing to do that. And they're also supporting requested reports as we understand the unique aspects and impact of the school closure. And so our data services team is able to take data questions that we might have about a variety of different items and be able to turn that around and be able to respond to those questions with data so that decisions can be made. When you think about remote learning, we have a number of federal requirements that we are held accountable to. We have SIPA and COPPA, FERPA and HIPAA. Those all have different data requirements and obligations that as educators in an educational institution, we are required to think about the venues that students are learning in, the applications that they're learning, the applications that we're pushing out for student use, the applications that we purchase as a district to be able to use, because they all interact with students, student data, and we're held accountable to those things. And so we are committed to providing a robust learning environment for students while also keeping them safe. And so when you think about remote working and learning, there's a few different pieces that I want to point out. We have our direct access for students and staff, and that is that direct pipeline into the district network. Students and staff have that. Our Office 365 suite has a variety of tools that both staff and students use, from communication tools such as Outlook to presentation tools such as PowerPoint, and then there's the whole host of productivity tools that staff and students use. OneNote is used for collaboration between teachers, but also between staff, but also between teachers and students. We have Teams, both at the staff-to-staff level for collaboration and at the classroom level for students, and I'll talk about both of those in a little bit more depth in a couple of slides. And then Stream I put that on here specifically because that is the platform that will allow us to do streaming of video content within our Office 365 suite, and actually that will be pushed out through classroom teams. We have our PowerSchool Learning. That has been our learning management system for the last number of years that both staff, students, and families are using. And then we have our whole host of approved applications for both staff and student use. And so talking a little bit more about Microsoft Teams, at the beginning of this year, we started to roll out Microsoft Teams as a staff-to-staff collaboration tool. We started with our administrative staff, and then we were rolling it out for teachers to start to use, staff to start to use, and by the end of the year, we had a target that all staff would receive training on Microsoft Teams. With this closure, it's pretty remarkable the number of staff that are using Teams, and I have some data to share with you around that. You can see here, beginning of March and end of March, a week's period of time, you can see significant increase in active users, almost an increase of 4,000 active users over that period of time. The number of calls increased, messages within a channel, which is a secure site, and then chat messages is kind of that direct communication. You can see a significant increase in those, which shows us that staff are using this tool to interact and collaborate. Another set of data that I want to point out, and this is just for the last 7 days, and this is also almost mind-blowing, the number of hours that are being spent within Microsoft Teams, but this really tells us that it's being used as a very robust collaboration tool. And so, and this is the audio video communication usage over the last 7 days. So there's been over 18,000 hours of audio dialogue on Microsoft Teams. There's been over 16,000 hours of video dialogue over the last 7 days. And there's been over 8,500 hours of screen sharing, so exactly what I'm doing with you right now, over the last 7 days. That tells us that staff are using this tool of Teams very well and very deeply for their planning, for their connections, for meetings and whatnot. And then talking about classroom teams. We have a learning management system in place right now, which is PowerSchool Learning. We know that Microsoft Teams has really two sides. One is really the adult-to-adult collaboration, and the other is teacher-to-student collaboration, and that's what we're calling classroom teams. And so in working with our partners, Microsoft, figuring out how to get this plugged in a way that we do it well, that students are safe in this environment, knowing that we have not, to date, done that robust training that we typically do anytime we roll out a strategic initiative. Mindy and her team are, and Sally and her team, are actively developing the training resources that will come alongside the classroom teams so that it is available for use. And really the two specific aspects of Microsoft Teams that they're developing training around, the initial training is around streaming video. So how do I get a video into Stream, and then how do I allow students to access that through our Classroom Teams site, and then also virtual conferencing. That's the video conferencing, dialoguing with students and families and whatnot over Microsoft Teams. There's many other parts and pieces of Classroom Teams that we will continue to develop training around, but we know that all of our teachers will participate in a training around Classroom Teams, and this will be a tool that we move forward with using. And then knowing that anytime you make a shift and like we are doing right now to new curriculum, new learning, we don't just want to turn it on and say go. We actually want to do it really well and know that all 2,000 of our teachers have a baseline understanding of how to and what are the resources and what are some of the best practices. And so Mindy and her team have been actively working with other departments to make sure that they had access and support for developing digital resources. Mindy's team developed some how-to resources for both parents and students around PowerSchool Learning and our digital resources. Mindy's team did a significant job of vetting the digital resources for compliance with those student and data privacy protection requirements I talked about a few minutes ago, and did that kind of in that real time as we were pushing those things out. And another piece that Mindy and her team do is they work with our technology, I will say, liaisons at the building. We have a teacher identified at each building that we call the TIF, the Technology Integration Facilitator, and our librarians, their formal title is actually Library Media Specialist. And so they are a resource at each building. And so really worked with them, leveraged their expertise to make sure that staff had access and were understanding how to use the digital resources, and also, again, adherence to that student and privacy laws. Some of the other work that Mindy and her team did, they actually were primary in developing that staff-to-staff Teams training, that collaboration, and it was previously scheduled to be completed on the March 13th LEAP, but we know they put that into Cornerstone, which is our professional learning management system for staff, and staff are accessing it that way now. When the closure occurred, Mindy and her team actually went into action to make sure that staff had the professional learning needed to really get that baseline of understanding for the learning resource part of our educational experience for students. And so I have some data on the next slide around the webinars that they did with staff, which are pretty substantial. They recorded those webinars and now they're available to staff to be able to watch. The webinars were really a live, interactive experience for staff, but they did create them as a recorded option as well for staff to be able to view it at another time. And then again, like I talked about, Mindy's team collaborating with Sally's team in technology operations are collaborating around the professional learning for the classroom team's environment. In the data around the webinars, you can see here, and this is just over a very short period of time, the number of webinars that they hosted, and you can see it was focused on a number of different items: Teams, PowerSchool Learning, Flipgrid, which is an educational resource. We learned at the Flipgrid webinar that a Teams meeting can only hold 250 participants, but there is another type of Teams meeting that you can actually allow for more. So learned that in the process, and because we had more people attempting to participate in that webinar than we were actually able to do, and so we wouldn't run into that issue again. Resource vetting, so how do you go through the process of identifying a web resource, and what are the actions you need to take as a teacher to make sure that it's safe for students? I see some OneNote there, screen recording in PowerPoint. You can see that actually had significant participation because PowerPoint is a very robust tool that many of our teachers use right now, and so being able to have the screen recording aspect in PowerPoint is going to allow our staff to be able to use that and push it out to students as we enter into this next phase. And you can see at the very bottom there, over a 2-week period, they offered 13 webinars with over 1,400 participants, and with the recorded webinars, there was over 500 individuals that went back and participated in the webinar as a recorded session. So close to about 2,000 participants in the webinar series. Here's some data around PowerSchool Learning. This is what's been interesting with the PowerSchool Learning data is we've seen pretty significant increases for both parents and teachers, and student access has been about the same. You can see there in the total hits over this period of time is about 5.5 million hits. And so when there's no wonder that PowerSchool has experienced some slowdown. We have been in contact with PowerSchool Learning to see if there's anything we could provide support on, knowing that their systems were a little bit slow, and so I know they're working actively to be able to get their system to where it's a little bit faster. And then as far as active users or number of visits by group, you can see here over the last 7, 30, and 60 days, and you can kind of see if you extend the last 7 days, you can see teacher use and parent use is pretty high over this last period of time, where student use is definitely up, but pretty consistent. And so the other thing that we've had to do is really shift some of our priorities during this time, because this all came at everyone knowing that there was additional work and things that we wanted to accomplish for our students. And so we did have to shift resources and focus to meet the demand, while also ensuring that we were preparing for the next school year, because really once that calendar year turns over for us, we are actively working on preparing for the next school year, whether it's ordering of student devices or thinking about our student information systems and rolling the school years over, preparing the student and staff images for the devices, professional learning that we want to provide for that next year. So while we've had to shift resources, it's on top of continuing to prepare for the next school year. And the team, all of our teams, have spent significant hours problem solving with both internal stakeholders and external partners. Meetings with our technology partners to help us problem solve some of the items that I talked about before. They've been instrumental to help us through this. And then it's a continued day-to-day effort to make sure that we're meeting the current demand and requirements because, like I said early in the presentation, we have 192 current students that reached out and said that they do need technology, and so the team works to get that in their hands as quickly as possible, knowing that it's critical for that student and that family to have that technology experience. That concludes our technology and access presentation.
Questions for Dr. Holman? Cassandra.
Okay. This is a lot of work. Is there feedback? I can hear myself. No?
No.
Okay. This is a lot of work, and I know a lot of staff members who are working diligently and trying to figure out how to make this work for their classroom, their particular student population. And I'm wondering, other than hearing anecdotally, how are we hearing how staff are doing, whether they need help? How do we have a way of surveying parents and seeing, what it is that's working for them and what they might need more of? I mean, it's the same for students.
Right. When you say surveying parents to find out what's working for them, could you be more specific?
Asking for their input as far as, is this particular method working for your student? In general, are you able to,
Gotcha.
Are they learning online? Are they able to sit and actually listen and fulfill the expectations and create a product?
Right.
I mean, I think input from all sides are going to be very necessary in order to move forward and to keep
Right.
on top of learning as much as possible in this time. Do you have a current way of getting that feedback?
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. One, I'll start with staff. Well, let me actually start before that. It has been uniquely challenging with the state requirements kind of changing on us. Just as this closure has extended, OSPI seeing that additional guidance needed to be updated, and every time we would receive an update, it seemed like there was a shift in what we were asking for students, staff, families. And so at this point, I don't feel like we have had a length of time to be able to reach out to say, how is it all working for you? Because we're going to go through another shift here in about a week as we move to new learning and online curriculum. What I do know is that principals are continuing to connect with their staff and make sure that they are collaborating with their teams, that they have the resources that they need. Whenever we're talking with our principals, they're providing updates around kind of the successes that they're experiencing. Teachers are finding their way with how did they reach out, like what's the best way for them to reach out and get specific feedback from families. Knowing that we have kind of this overall system and each teacher, given their context, is going to make it work for their specific situation, given their remote working experience, given the students they have in their class. It's going to be a little bit different elementary to secondary. I know our secondary teachers, they already have pretty direct communication with their students already, even when students were attending brick and mortar school. The amount of email traffic, communication through so they already have those kind of communication venues established. I know that Mike and the team are thinking about, and I know Mike is on the call, so if he wants to jump on and comment about this, as we move forward, how do we get stakeholder voice in this? Mike is meeting with a series of staff groups this week to do some additional work. And so, Mike, if you're on, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Sandra, to go to your question too, remember we're shifting to a very different form of instruction from optional supplemental enrichment resources to more curriculum-based graded assessment. So that's going to require a very different approach to delivering instruction. And many of the tools that John just described are going to be the tools that teachers now start to use to deliver that. So video conferencing, video streaming, opportunities for students to connect on Teams. So those tools haven't been put in place yet, and so we don't have enough information or time to gather data on what we haven't put in place. At the same time, as you know, we have a number of teachers who are doing kind of an early rollout of curriculum-based instruction. So they're using the curriculum, advancing learning, and using the tools that we have in place already, not the tools that John's described yet. And so next week we are planning on having them send home a survey to families to ask them about their experience. We're also going to ask questions about the level of structure that's needed. We're hearing from some families that they want very tight, very specific assignments in a very structured way. We're hearing from some families that is way too much and it's pushing their kids kind of over the edge in terms of what they can manage at home. So we want to quantify that a little bit better. So that survey will be going to the families of the teachers who are in the early phase of curriculum-based instruction next week. There are about 165 teachers that are participating in that right now. And so we'll have that data to look at. And then what I would recommend is that when we start actually using these tools and this approach more robustly in the coming weeks, that we're checking in with folks along the way there.
So we do have plans to make sure that we are getting feedback from all of these groups.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we've talked
Appreciate
about
that.
some creative ways to do that too, and using some of our classified staff is just checking in, because the other point that brings up is it working for you instructionally, but just how are you doing and how are things going are some really important questions that I think we need to keep doing as we engage families.
So the other question I have is, as each week passes, there are differences and changes coming down from the state for all people. We're hearing from the governor on staying at home longer. We're hearing all sorts of different changes. The opportunities that we currently have for students as far as meals and childcare and other resources, are we sending out, I think I saw the meals, weekly reminders that these resources exist? Because I imagine we're going to have more and more people who need those resources the longer this goes on.
Yes, that's part of our overall plan so that people stay aware, because it's another kind of good point that you bring up with that is as time goes on, this does change. And I think probably the guidance from here on out in terms of what schools have been asked to do from now to the end of the school year is probably not going to change much from what it is right now. But it's going to stay, it's going to be keeping people engaged with that, keeping them coming back. And Shannon and her team have talked about kind of a series of things each week, both for just helpful information as well as reminding people where to go and how to get things. And as the needs change, we'll respond. But hopefully people are also getting in kind of the routine of it now. And so they're familiar with how to get things and where to get things that they need, or they have a friend who's been accessing something and can pass that information along. What we don't know is kind of beyond the school closure date of June, what that's going to look like through the summer. I think that will be some of the next questions that we'll have is what does summer look like? Will we have the opportunity to open back up to any degree to provide summer services or summer feeding programs and some of those things? Because once we end the school year, we need to have a plan for then kind of that bridge between the end of the school year and the beginning of next school year. So those are some of the things that we're already starting to think about and plan for.
Okay, I am hearing parents who haven't been in the loop for some reason, and life is crazy right now, and they're probably trying to work from home, and they have kids at home they're trying to educate. That seems surprised that they're maybe a little bit behind the information cycle, and I'm wondering if we can continue to communicate as we go along so we can bring everybody with us.
Absolutely, and smaller pieces are things we've talked about, and we'll be asking our schools to do a lot of that work too, so that people stay connected with their schools. But we all know that we tend to go get information at point of need, And sometimes that point of need and point of interest is right when the information is there, and sometimes it comes down the way a little bit. So we want to make sure people have multiple points where they can go and find things easily, or they ask us again and we point them out and they say, oh, I didn't read that the first time it came out. Thank you, I see it's there. So we can point people to it and we'll keep feeding it as well.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Sean, I have a question. Do we know the percentage or the numbers of students that actually have reached out to the teachers and are communicating, not regularly necessarily, but have been reaching out? I read a number the other day that nationally it's only about 50%. And so I was curious to see what our percentages were like, or if we had a feel for it yet.
I don't have that data point in hand. I see Mike jumped on.
Yeah, just talking about plans moving forward. One of the things we've been talking about, this was actually a principal suggestion actually, is to have our teachers track the students they're not hearing from. So they will have reached out to them via email, reached out to the family when they start assigning work and they're not getting work back, that we'll capture the name of the student, the ways that we've tried to reach out, and we'll gather that for all of our families. Then we can start working on those second tier strategies. So for example, having instructional assistants, people in the schools calling those families at different hours that maybe they're not available normally during the school day, sending direct mail to families so that we start pulling them in. So we want to be really intentional about starting to do that. That's something we're having our pilot groups trying out as an initial work so that we can kind of see the process, and then we'll have a form that each teacher will fill out for all of their kids, and we'll collect that by school.
Great, I appreciate that. It struck me as odd nationally number, but I thought I'd ask on what we're doing. Thanks.
That's a good point to bring up, Mark, though, because I think we all kind of have this ideal picture in our mind, and we are the purveyors of information and the devices and the online resources, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to be able, willing, feel like this is a priority right now. Because one of the best articles that I've seen, I was reading it this weekend, and we've characterized this as online learning, remote learning, but this isn't any of those. This is something completely different that we have never dealt with before. And the difference is the state that families are also in, and all of us are them. Everybody is at home right now. We are all in the same kind of limited situation without being able to go where we typically go and do what we typically do. And so everybody is dealing with their reality from that first, and then education is a part of that, and we're going to do our very, very best. But I think we have to realize that families are in all different situations with this. And the priority right now is staying safe and staying healthy and weathering this economically and getting through to the point where we can resume some normal activities. We want education to be a big part of that, but we're also going to help families if that wasn't their priority right now while we're moving through this period of time, because that's the reality as well for many people, depending on all kinds of circumstances. So we're going to help you right here and now to keep learning, and we're also going to help families recover from this when we can bring kids back to school.
I was very pleased this afternoon to hear the governor say basically the same thing, that this is not learning as you have known it ever before. And it's not, this new world is going to be just that, a new world of learning and a new method of giving out information to students and getting feedback from them. So I'm glad that he recognizes, of course, he's a former school board member, so I think that helps.
I'm sure it does. Other questions?
Yeah, so I've got a couple for John. The first is on PowerSchool, the hits you were showing didn't seem to show that we've had a change in speed. But I can tell you that I've been looking over my shoulder of a couple of high school students, and there's an awful lot of spinning wheels on PowerSchool. So is that part of the extra capacity you're bringing on?
Is the question, are the extra hits because of the slowness?
Well, there's not, yeah, exactly. Your hills didn't look like they were that much taller, but it's certainly not moving fast enough to do an effective job of educating kids at home.
Right, and so that's why we're bringing on some additional platforms.
Okay, I was just making sure that that was the case. The other one is, this is just a very specific one, but I got to tell you, my spouse, who is in charge of she's the principal of our homeschool, our parent login process, I don't think we have ever successfully logged in with the same password twice. Skyward makes us change it just about every time we log in. And I mean, she's frustrated as hell with the fact that she can't even set the password to something she could remember. She has to write down this random string of letters that Microsoft has assigned her that she can't change. And then the next time she tries to log in and it doesn't work, she just goes through the roof. So if there's any way possible for us to set it so that parents can use one password for the rest of the freaking school year, that would make my life a whole lot easier. And I'm not sure I'm not the only parent experiencing this.
We will check into that. We are all
Thank
about
you.
making your life easier and your marriage stable, so we will see
Yes.
what we can do. And I don't know if that has anything to do with frequency of hits. We'll ask Minnie and Sally about that, because some of that may be on our side and some of that may be in the Skyward system that we'll have to check on, but that does sound frustrating.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yep. Other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to Mike.
I have a few.
Okay?
So my quick question, you had mentioned getting out the additional devices. At what percentage of our students now are one-to-one? So how many are we still missing connectivity is, I guess, what my question would be.
So are you referring to the laptop or the hotspot?
I would say being able to access remote learning digitally.
Right. I
So
don't think.
both.
Right. I don't think we have a good barometer right now on who has access and who doesn't. Right now, we've communicated out, if you need access, here's how you can ask us for it. I think what Mike described before, one of the ways we know students are either engaged or not engaged is if we're getting communication back from the student, if they're turning things in. That will be one of the metrics we use to then reach out to say, what's the barrier for you? And that family might say, well, we didn't even know we could ask because, we're putting all of this communication out through our typical communication channels. And if someone doesn't have Wi-Fi access and maybe not a laptop, then there's a potential that they may not have access to the communication we're sending out. So it's one of the barriers that we're experiencing right now, just given typical protocols for communication when students, aren't at school and we can't hand, a typical sheet of paper or go here for a translated version of our communication, all of those things. And so we're going to have to figure that out as we go, because we don't have a mechanism right now to know who does and who doesn't have that, but that's definitely one of the things. And that is the reason that as Sally and team were looking for additional hotspots, they procured more than what the current demand is, because we have a sense that once school turns into new curriculum, new learning, graded work, that we will have additional requests.
I would also, can I add to that? Our principals are also on that pretty heavily, and they know their families well. They've done a really good job of trying to advocate when they know that there's a family that may not be likely to have connectivity. They've tried to fill in the gaps there. So we also rely on them quite a bit to help us know where there's a need that we may not be aware of when we just send, some of our typical mechanisms. So they've been trying to really help make sure that that's happening.
No, that's great. My question would just be, if we know that the April 20th is sort of the official all launch, I would hope the plan is that we will know who those families are and that we're addressing those in those weeks prior so that they're ready to go come that Monday as much as possible. Especially with K4, knowing that we don't have a one-to-one with our K4, and thinking about them and where that's at. So that would be my hope, that we're doing that work now, if that's just calling them and saying, hey, do you have that capacity? You also mentioned hotspots. I know at listening to the governor's press conference, there was a lot of talk about the telecommunication companies, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and their expansion of mobile, that data is becoming unlimited for many plans if you're on a cell phone. So then you might have a cell phone hotspot that could be utilized that somebody has. And I don't know if that's in our area or even if our families would be aware of it necessarily, if it's come available. But that might be an opportunity for students who have a cell phone that they could hotspot it off their cell phones. But just that to me is a key thing for the remote learning, if we're really going to make this work, is that we have that in place. So I guess that's the one piece I do think about. And you're doing tons of work around it all, and I know it's a lot of different things and staff and all the above, and it's amazing. And that's just the one piece I think about. The other piece is you mentioned all these webinars, which look fantastic and there's great resources. I'm hoping we're sharing those and making those accessible to other districts if they by chance need them or access, or that we are looking at the sharing capacity for that in regards to other districts that don't necessarily have the resources we do, but therefore that would be a good training for their teams. And so we can really share that, since we are all in this together, how can we leverage all our resources out there? Because I was like, can I see these webinars? Because they might be helpful for me as I try to figure out Microsoft Teams and what I'm supposed to do with it. So I think if we have a great resource, let's get it out to where we can and really leverage those things. And that's it. So thank you. No, I appreciate all the laying out and everything and where it's going. It looks like it's on the great path. I guess my one is setting a goal for every student has access by April 20th would be a goal I would love to see.
Great. So we'll turn it over to Mike Van Orden to kind of continue the conversation.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. I think it's a question for John. John, when our teachers are reaching out to their students, are they inquiring about their ability to connect to these resources, and are they then tracking it too? Would be the second part.
Yeah, so one of the things that, and I believe Shannon Hitch will probably talk about this in her part of the presentation. You know, one part of our student population is our students with special needs and IEPs, and so Shannon will talk about some of the outreach that they're doing specific, and some of the questions they're asking are, do you have access to the resources? What support do you need? And they're actually documenting all of that. So Shannon will go into further depth with all of that. We will, as Mike described, we don't have that consistent method of outreach to say, does X family have connection here, and are we documenting it in that manner? We aren't right now, but moving forward, if we're truly going to provide online learning and school for kids, then we have to know, which kids are accessing and why kids aren't accessing. And so that is going to be a structured documentation.
Thanks.
Say, John? John, one last question. I'm thinking there must be overlap in the kids that probably don't have connectivity and the kids who are on free and reduced lunch. So isn't that something we can cross-reference to try and hasten that project?
So it's an interesting question, because those data are very secure data, of which there are requirements for how we use that data. And so I could ask, Tim Krieger probably has as good a knowledge around the use of that data as anyone. My guess is there's other ways we would need to do outreach to students other than that as the data point, just because of all of the different rules around the use of that data. But
here again, that's where our principals are key, because they know those families, and they know, the ones who are most likely to have those needs. And so I think we can be very strategic with how our schools and people at their schools, because that's also what's comfortable for families and kids, because they already know if that secretary calls them, or if their teacher or para, or even the principal and the assistant principal, when they get calls from them asking those questions, they're much more likely to be willing to share the information that they need. People aren't always willing to share their needs. So we want them to be as comfortable as possible when they say, yes, I need some help. And I think that's the people that they know the best. And so I think our thinking needs to be around how do we mobilize people in our schools to do those checkpoints.
Well, that's why I was assuming the folks that know them the best would be the ones who would touch base with them, but yet the folks who are, whether it's Tim Krieger and his crew or whoever, would be able to assimilate those numbers for them so that pass them on to the schools.
Yeah, and really, I mean, it needs to be an everybody kind of a thing, because even if people have connectivity, it doesn't necessarily mean they know that they should be connecting. And it might be language barriers, it might just be cultural, it might be I really don't care and I don't want to do this. And so I think we'll need to check in and have a good set of questions that is telling for us, no matter which of those things it may be, apart from just the actual need. I think, you know, I'm hearing from my colleagues in other districts that just because families have access doesn't necessarily mean they want to take part in what we're going to be asking them to do. So there are a number of good strategic questions we'll need to be asking. Good questions.
So that would be great to just know that's on the plate coming forward and that that's the plan going forward. So that's the key.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, so we'll ask Mike. Mike and his team are going to share just some more pieces as an update from last week, just on where we kind of are with teaching and learning and remote instruction.
Thanks. So we're going to have Dr. Shannon Hitch and Kelly Pease share some updates for special education, special services, and intervention services in a moment. I wanted to give you just some updates in general since our last meeting. We have had teams working all of last week and this week as well to start to develop resources and guidance for teachers and students and families. And so one of the benefits of having a little bit more time than maybe some districts that jumped ahead is that we can actually provide those resources to teachers so that they can do a better job. And by better, again, we have to remember the time and the pacing and all of that. But I did want to share with you an example of some of the work our teams have been doing over these past couple weeks. And so I'll pull up a document for you here. Can everyone see that okay? So what these teams have been doing is been thinking about things like, how do we teach in these new conditions? What do we teach in these new conditions? How do we assess in these new conditions? And so they're developing guidance in those areas for teachers and students and families. And so everything from defining what we mean by continuous learning so that everybody has a clear picture of what that means. And again, continuous learning in these times are very different than if we weren't having students and teachers locked down in their homes. We were talking with one teacher just last week, for example, who was giving us some guidance in some of these areas. And she actually had her child on her lap with her at the time because we had a meeting that had to be at a certain time and she was taking care of her kid. That's the reality that our teachers are in right now. That's the reality that our families are in. And so to think about remote learning right now, we have to keep that in mind. At the same time, we want to be thinking really specifically about what does it look like. So we have examples like that. Our teams have been developing guidance around, as I mentioned, the what needs to be taught. So what must we address in the time that we have remaining to make sure that we continue to advance learning? What things can you do if you get through the things that are required, and what's ongoing enrichment you can do? In addition, they're thinking about things like how do we have students assess themselves? Because assessment's a whole different ballgame when we're talking about students at home in environments where they have lots of folks. So all the way down to kindergarten, where kids are self-assessing themselves on their completion of different work, up until you get into intermediate grades, and students are talking kind of about whether or not they are getting the concepts, whether it's making sense to them. We know that student self-assessment makes a big difference for kids as they think about their learning. We're also thinking about the learning platforms that we have available, the digital content that we have available, and how people can quickly access that. And so just making those resources available to teachers so that when they return from break, as they're planning and getting prepared for that first day of school, with graded instruction, it's delivered remotely, they have a real solid bank of tools and resources and strategies to help them through that work. And so that's been work that's being led by our directors. We have teachers at the table. We have principals at the table. They're working all through this week to help us develop much of that guidance. The other thing I wanted to share is underneath all of that lives all sorts of resources. So in our digital tools, there are lesson planning templates, guides, documents, curriculum resources that teachers can use. So what I shared with you just a moment ago is kind of the high level guidance, and then beneath that are the real concrete logistic type of documents and resources. And so those are going to be available to teachers starting next week. Even some of them are going out this week. So as they're planning, as I mentioned, to carry us through the rest of the year, they have those resources. So quite a bit of work happening there. We also, as I mentioned, have work that's happening around our grading practices and how we're going to assign grades, particularly at the high school level where kids' credit is dependent on it. And so we should have some more information on that coming soon. That's going to be also informed by the work of our neighboring districts, as well as some information that should be coming out from the State Board of Education later this week. We are working on distribution systems, as we were talking about briefly earlier. How do we get not only those packet types of work that we were talking about earlier out, and Kelly Pease will talk about that more in a little bit, but also things like our textbooks and novels. We're thinking about, as we're doing that distribution, things like social distance needs and things like ways that teachers can get the materials to have them distributed. We've heard, I think I mentioned, I don't know if I recall it was with this group last week, one district we heard about that did start putting out resources like that, and 100 people showed up. And that created this kind of unsafe condition that they had to pull back pretty quickly. And so we're also thinking about how do we create schedules that has a limited number of people coming at a time to pick up resources, and then how do we track them? So quite a bit of logistics happening there. As we were mentioning earlier this evening, thinking about how we're gathering feedback from different stakeholders. So as I shared, we have about 165 teachers who are part of an early rollout. We're going to do some initial feedback from those folks, as well as the parents and students who are participating, and then we'll be thinking about how can we replicate that with all of our families as we move to having all of our 1,800 plus teachers using resources more robustly and with a curriculum focus. So there's quite a bit of work that's happening. As disappointed as we were and as sad as we were to hear that our students are coming back, it does allow us now to take our focus from having to plan for potential of being closed for the whole year and the potential of coming back, now to plan for being out for the rest of the year. And so we do have some very intentional work that can start moving forward. And that can all now start to interface with digital platforms that John was describing and have those all come together. So again, going to that idea of taking a little bit more time so that we can start pulling all of these different systems together so that our teachers are well equipped is going to serve us in the long run. I know right now people are feeling the pinch and feeling like things aren't moving fast enough, but as we start to be able to equip teachers, we should start to see some acceleration in the work, and still recognizing that there'll be some bumps along the way. So with that, I'm going to turn it now over to Dr. Shannon Hitch to share some updates very specific to special education. And then once she's done, Kelly Pease will share some updates on intervention services, and again, how this work is being really thought of in many different ways, and the different services and students that we provide. So I'll take me just a moment to get those up and make sure that you can all see them. Let's see here. I'm going to start by sharing. First I have to get into display mode here. Okay, looks like, can you all see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Oh, it's working. Okay, I can see it too. Okay, so Shannon, you can just go ahead and tell me when you're ready to have me move slides, and I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. So one of the goals for us tonight is to share with you some updates on where we are right now with special education services during this school closure period. First and foremost, our focus is on supporting our students and families. So over the past week or two, staff have been reaching out individually to each of the families on their caseload to consider what their needs might be, to talk about their students' IEPs, to talk about whether they need any type of paper copies for work activities, and to consider how they're going to work collaboratively together as we move forward during this closure period. Currently, we have staff reviewing student IEPs for each and every child on their caseload because our goal in special education is to align the learning and instruction from our staff in alignment with the students' areas of specially designed instruction. So if a student is qualified for supports in the areas of basic reading and writing, we want to ensure that our special ed teachers are designing activities in both of those areas of specially designed instruction. We do have behavior supports available and have started rolling those out. We have board certified behavior specialists who are able to provide parent coaching and team collaboration for our students that have either that support on their IEP, or if they simply have a behavior plan and there's a need there to support the family in that area. And so those supports have begun. In essence, our special ed services are continuing to happen in alignment with what Gen Ed is providing. And so there's been questions about, will special education be replicating minutes on IEPs? Or will special education be providing hours in addition to what Gen Ed teachers are doing? And really what our message is we work collaboratively with Gen Ed, and so our services are incorporated in that student contact time that's going to be occurring. All IEP and 504 accommodations and modifications are maintained when online schooling starts. And so if a student has extended time on their IEP, then they can have extended time in completing their online learning activities. So those accommodations and modifications are there for all students, and special ed teachers have been encouraged to connect with their Gen Ed colleagues around lesson design and around sharing the student modifications and accommodations with them again, in case those are tucked away in a folder on their desk at school. We want to make sure that they have access to all of those. We will be providing some version of therapy services with our SLPs, OTs, and PTs. That is currently being worked on in small groups along with LWEA and special ed administration, so that we can ensure that kids continue to get supports if they have communication or motor challenges. And then we are working with our school to work partners to modify how they're supporting our adult transition students. So we're maintaining our contract with those providers and simply altering what those services and supports could look like for our students. So that work is ongoing. Next slide. Thank you. So there's a number of questions or considerations around compliance during this period of time. Special education compliance is a challenging topic when everything's going well. And so it's a particularly unique and challenging experience during school closures. So we are following right now state and national guidance around how we're implementing compliance measures. And so during the school closure, annual IEPs are continuing, triennial reevaluations are continuing, and our birth to 3 transitions are continuing. There will be some exceptions here and there for individual student cases, but for the most part, those timelines and efforts will continue as we move forward. Child find and initial evaluations, on the other hand, those are on hold because those are actually something that is very difficult to conduct when you're in a virtual learning environment. And in addition to that, those requirements are mandated by school days. And so right now we don't have operational school days, and so those timelines are on hold. Birth to 3 transition students, all of our little ones turning 3 years old this spring, typically they transition into our early learning programs. And so in this instance, we've been working with our Birth to 3 partners like Kindring Center, and they're going to continue to serve our students until school resumes. And so those little ones are continuing to get their therapy services and their supports during this period of time. What we do know is that upon our return to school, every child in special education, which is a significant number for us here in Lake Washington, is going to need to have a review around considering their need for the potential of an extended school year and or compensatory services. So that is something happening at the state level where they are trying to start to figure out how that could be implemented. And so there's more to come in that area. And then we're also working across our departments to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our graduating seniors, to ensure that we're able to get them across the graduation line. So some of the work that we've been engaged in over the past couple of weeks, we have a curriculum adoption committee. We are seeking to adopt some curriculum around social skills. That team is continuing their work, and so we will have a recommendation at the end of this school year for curriculum adoption in that area. Professional learning is happening for special ed teachers, related services, and paraeducators. Last week, I held virtual meetings with all special education staff and administrators. So we had well over 500 participants in Teams meetings last week, and it was only slightly nerve-wracking to have that many people online, but we made our way through, and those were good conversations. We're continuing to collaborate with our colleagues in other districts and staying in close touch with OSPI and with other national organizations. I am really proud to say that our resources that have been developed so far are being utilized by a number of our districts that are neighbors. And so this is a time in which we're seeing just tremendous collaboration across district lines, which is exciting. Our staffing and program considerations are still moving along, so we're continuing with hiring. We're continuing with looking at program placements for next year. All of that work is ongoing. We're going to be collaborating with LWA on some question and answer documents. Questions have been coming in over the past couple of weeks, and as we try and work our way through those, we're working collaboratively with LWEA so that we're giving guidance that is consistent for staff, considering how much they are trying to navigate right now. We're also developing some exemplars, so similar to the pacing guides that general education has been working on. Special education is adding to those pacing guides, but we're also developing some of our own exemplars around what learning activities can be considered that are in alignment to areas of specially designed instruction. Because it's a lot more tricky to create an online social skills lesson or an online social emotional lesson perhaps than it is to do a math lesson. And so those are some of the pieces that we are working to support our staff with. The fascinating part about all of this is really throwing our staff into Universal Design for Learning 101 on a very practical basis, in the sense that all of our staff are experiencing what it feels like to attempt to design instruction that meets the needs of all the learners in their classes. And so we think this is going to be a great launching for universal design work in our district. And that's actually part of the professional learning that we're seeking to implement with our staff. And we're working right now with some national organizations around bringing that training online into our district. And then I always take great joy in looking at the pictures of Old Redmond Schoolhouse coming along. That construction is continuing, and it is starting to look more and more like an early learning site. And so that is probably one of the brighter spots in the days that we've been enjoying, is looking at pictures as those things come along. So I think that is special ed in a nutshell. And I don't know, Mike, if you want to just turn this over to Kelly or open this for questions now.
Yeah, I'll take the lead from anybody. Do we want to wait for just a moment and see if there are questions for Shannon right now, or do we want to wait till the end of the presentation?
Let's do special education questions specific right now, and then we can move into intervention.
All right.
Question. Is it my turn?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
we don't. Not everybody has a BCBA. But these are times that could create the need for
Cassandra?
on your radar that they need additional help.
Cassandra, can you repeat your question? You're lagging a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not that getting close is going to help. Some students, because of the conditions on the ground right now, need a BCBA that probably didn't need one 2 months ago. How would they go about getting BCBA services if it's not in our IEP?
Yes, I think I understood your question, even though you cut out a little bit here and there. But the question being, how are we supporting students that may have an increased need for behavioral support right now and may not have a BCBA on their IEP? And that is actually part of the process that our teachers are engaging in when they communicate with families. And so we've got a number of talking points for teachers to follow during their conversations with families, and one of their questions is around behavior. And so we are providing BCBA supports for any student who has significant behavioral needs. It is automatically offered to our families that have BCBA on their IEP, and it's also automatically considered for the students that we have behavior plans as part of their IEP. But we also have the option that if a family, in talking with the teacher, is basically saying our child is in a behavioral crisis, and it's beyond the teacher's capacity to support them, then we do have the ability to have them tap into those BCBA supports. And so we are right now really kind of rolling that out, and we'll see how the need evolves as we go through this process and whether or not we need to consider additional support or if we have enough coverage right now.
Shannon, would you
Yes.
define our alphabet? We know special education seems to have the most letters. Could you
Yes.
define IEP, BCBA, SLPOT, and PT?
Yes, thank you for the reminder. So an IEP is an individual educational plan. That is the plan that each child in special education has that outlines what their educational goals and outcomes are. An SLP is a speech and language pathologist who provides communication therapy. An OT and a PT are occupational and physical therapists. They support students that have fine and gross motor needs. BCBA is a board certified behavior analyst, so someone who goes and receives intensive training around how to design and support kids with significant behavioral challenges. And specially designed instruction, was that one? Is the service that is provided by special education teachers to enable our students to make growth and progress on their IEP goals.
Thank you.
Yes.
The other thing that I would just say about behavior is our teachers are also great resources, and I know as we continue to move forward, they'll be working with parents because they know the strategies that were successful as those kids were in classrooms with them, and might be able to offer some helpful tips to parents and regular classroom teachers, special education. All of them have a pretty deep well when it comes to ideas and helping people change it up. One of the things that we know as educators is we have things that work for a long period of time with strategies for kids, and we have kids that need strategies that are different from hour to hour, day to day, week to week, and so they have a lot of different things that anybody can try. If parents begin to struggle, there may be things that are working really well right now, and in 3 weeks you have a student who becomes defiant or doesn't want to participate in learning. We have some ideas that they can use as incentives, as reinforcement, as kitties that walk across the keyboard.
Hi, Live.
But we have a lot of people who can help with that. And I think all of our parents need to be aware that our teachers are here to be resources to you in all of those ways, as well as just providing content and check-ins around learning. They can help with routines and procedures. They can help with ways to reinforce and helping to talk with their child. And the other thing that I was thinking about, Barbara had shared a picture with me today, and I've seen a few of them on the line too, is particularly, it's all kids. It's whether you're younger or older students, all of them are still processing what's happening to them. And their level of importance that they're placing on learning right now looks different from family to family. And as we're beginning to set up more opportunities for kids to see their friends or do some video conferencing, there's also a big emotional pull that happens with that. And I think parents may see some behaviors even related to when we have kids engaging with their teacher or their students. The ones that are surfacing online right now are the little ones who see their first grade class on the screen, they're excited, and then they go away. And they don't understand why they can't be with them and why they can't play in their yards or go to the playground or be with them at middle school or high school. And so teachers can be resources, our counselors are resources. Everybody is able to help parents as they navigate what's happening alongside of instruction for those supports. And that's really, really important.
I would also add, Jane, that we are working in collaboration with community service agencies. And so right now, DDA has started unrolling out a variety of resources and supports for families. They've made some adjustments and changes to waivers. And so we're also seeking to connect families with those community agencies that can provide them with additional support.
Yep, lots of
Thank
tools
you.
out there.
You cut in and out, both of you, at least at my end. So I think what I gathered from all of this is obviously staff members are a great resource. And if somebody is really struggling with behavior with a student at home, they can ask just about any staff member they come into contact through for extra supports or ideas.
Yes.
Oh,
Good job. Okay,
one question.
Mm-hmm.
One question, and Jane, I brought this up to you before the meeting. I hear that Superintendent Reykdal kind of threw everybody a curve this afternoon when he, in response to a question, he said that perhaps the special needs students would be able to have in-building services at some point during this time frame due to the more one-on-one nature. I assume that means we'll probably be contacting him in the next few days to see what in the world he was talking about.
Yes, we're not
He not only talking about SPED teachers, but also ELL.
Right. We're not sure what that was right now. That wouldn't be congruent with our current closure orders. I think what he was referring to that we'll get clarity on probably on Wednesday is that should some of the restrictions be lifted, and I was thinking of it when Shannon was talking about extended year services and thinking about, okay, so if schools were able to be open, could you do some type of ESY for students or some limited, small group things or summer school or whatever that might look like. Right now, we're not supposed to be in buildings. So we'll get clarity around that. It could be different by community as well. If you had an urban area like we are where there's higher numbers of people who are susceptible to the virus, as opposed to a more rural school district that might not have any presence of it, it could look different that way too. So I'm hoping and assuming he's kind of meaning globally that there's a possibility depending on how things progress, but we have to get more clarity. There were a lot of questions around what that meant. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it sounded like he was talking about for the specialists, in particular the SLPs,
right,
OTs and PTs, with the idea being that since that's more one-on-one, that means less people in the building, but yet still you still have those problems of who they've been exposed to either on the student end or on the teacher's end, Plus, you'd have to end up figuring out what to do with either the teacher or the specialist kids because they're out of school.
Right, and then just the cleaning protocols and things. So we'll get clarification, and I will let you know if we get better information.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let's move forward to Kelly Pease to have some update on Safety Net and our English language learner programs.
Great. Good evening, everyone. We've been busy at work in intervention services, getting supports in place for students. Our Safety Net teachers and EL teachers are tasked to primarily collaborate with classroom teachers to support students and families. We've also added online adaptive technology for both for 3,000 EL students and expanded the use of Lexia to about 15,000 elementary age students. And for our EL students, we've given the 3,000 students access to Rosetta Stone, which is an online adaptive curriculum tool to learn the English language. When new learning begins after spring break, we'll be providing students with online access to Wonders, WonderWorks, and Wonders ELD. We're in the process of also thinking about, we know core instruction is imperative for every student, and through a UDL model, we'll be providing students with access to core, individualized support through WonderWorks and the Wonders ELD programs. Students' progress is continually being monitored by our EL and our Safety Net teachers as they are in the online adaptive tools. We are hopeful that as students progress through the curricula, they will be receiving just-in-time support through, you can assign online adaptive text and worksheets online for students to practice the skills that they're learning. We are very fortunate as a district that Lexia, we were able to offer Lexia to all of our students, and particularly to our K-2 students who are still really digging into learning phonics and phonemic awareness in preparation for them to be successful as they matriculate through the system, being confident word readers and able to comprehend texts that they encounter as they get older. We have over 900 students in kindergarten who also qualify for English learner support services. This year we were lucky enough to put in place some kindergarten facilitators who have been assigned to each school that are in regular communication with the kindergarten teams and supporting them with developing instruction and making things accessible to our youngest EL English language learners. We also, in looking at the eye on the prize for our high school students, we have done a sweep of which students are on track, which EL students and exited EL students are on track for graduation and are providing exited EL support through an exited EL facilitator to ensure kids are getting the support they need as we gear up to new learning on the 20th, that they'll be able to support the students to maintain credits for on-time graduation. This past week, last week, we provided paper learning resources to our schools that are serving lunch to students. We delivered to 16 schools and packets for K-5 students in hopes to ensure that students without access to digital tools at this point in time would have some learning and schoolwork to do. As Dr. Stabum shared, that we can often provide, but it's having the resources within the house with parents who may be watching 3 or 4 students, or sometimes an older sibling is the person who is taking care of the children in the household while their parents are essential workers and are out of the house. So I think as we move to new learning, we've got to really pay a close attention to what our students need and our families need to successfully orchestrate a remote learning situation. Next slide, Mike. Thanks. So what we've done with our EL families is we've talked to our English learner teachers and have asked them to, when we get back from break, to start keeping a log for every student and family that they have contacted with. We provided them with, we're sharing a lot through OneNote and have established teams for our safety net and our English learner teachers to collaborate on. And we've even had some schools use Skype with a Pacific interpreter to be able to contact families. We provided a script for for our EL teachers to use when doing outreach to families that asks first, how are you? Do you have access to meals? Do you have access to the technology you need? So by providing a script, it helped with the consistency of messaging and, again, the support that's happening for each family. With the activities that we've provided via the EL program on the outward-facing document where you can click and go into remote learning activities, we are in the process and will continue to translate the documents into the top 5 languages, which are Spanish, Hindi, Telugu, Russian, and Chinese Mandarin. We will expect that our EL teachers continue to collaborate together as an EL group on best ways of communicating with our English learner families. We would love to be able to, at the end of the first week of remote learning, to have a celebration that says we have had contact with every single EL family in our district, and we have done that collaboratively with the classroom teacher. For Safety Net, we have been in the process of getting our Safety Net teachers equipped to be the hub of Lexia learning in their school buildings, so that we've given them super user privileges so that they are monitoring and tracking student usage in Lexia. In week 2 of Lexia being rolled out, we had 70% of students who logged in and either met or exceeded the expectation for usage to show demonstrative growth in reading. So that is something that we're keeping a close eye on, and we're working with Tim Krieger to ensure that we're looking at the data in a way that is potentially user-friendly to send back out to students and families. Next slide, Mike. So as I've stated already, that we're using Microsoft Teams for collaboration and communication. It's been a wonderful tool, along with OneNote, for teachers to share resources with one another. We've been providing remote learning for students in maintenance learning, is what we called it, prior to moving to new learning. It's to shore up the skills and strategies that they have learned prior to school closure. We are in close contact on a biweekly basis through check-ins with all of our EL and Safety Net teachers to give them the latest of what we know that's coming down from the state, as well as to generate ideas on what they would like to have collaborative sessions with one another. We know that it's kind of the old adage, together everyone achieves more. The whole team approach really helps teachers that have great ideas in some areas share that and then garner ideas from other teammates. We're looking forward to starting new learning and want to ensure that all of our students who are in Lake Washington School District overall have access to the tools they need to be successful, and then thinking about if there are students who, after we have touched base with them, there's not the resources to access learning. That is part of what is keeping me awake at night, is trying to figure out what are the most realistic ways to help our students engage so that we are perpetuating the opportunity and achievement gap during closure. And that's all I have for you tonight.
It's quite a bit. Great work, Kelly and Shannon, with your teams, and Mike coordinating the big picture around all of our instructional services. Do you have questions for Kelly?
Yes, Kelly, it's not really a question, just a comment. I love the fact that you all anticipated the idea of making sure folks are making connections so you could actually see ahead of time who's using it and who's not, so you can encourage others. And I not only congratulate you all for doing that, but also for the students who are participating, showing their commitment to learning the language so they can continue their studies and excel at their studies. I think it's great you've got 70%. I'd love to see 100, but God, 70% is great.
I'd like to see over 100%. Kids getting on more than they're supposed to.
There you go.
Other questions for Kelly?
Yeah, this is Siri.
Hi, Siri.
And actually, it's not a question. It's for both, for just all the work that's gone forward. Thank you very much for being very thoughtful in regards to the equity piece. This is a big piece in regards to this. As I was looking through the operational expectations of the board and instructional program, as well as in technology, these are hitting some of the key values we put forward in there. So greatly appreciate that that's being taken care of. Trying not to make equity another issue on the side is important as we go forward, especially as we know this is for a much longer time frame. And so appreciate all the work and thoughtfulness in making sure our families have this and the extra support. So thank you.
So, Kelly, I've got a quick question. Rosetta Stone, is that something that we normally also provide access to for our EL students?
We typically only provide it for our emerging or newcomer students. And when we saw that school closure was imminent, we started working with the company to get all of our students provisioned so that at least in this time where we were developing curriculum and resources, they would at least have that tool to access.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Right. As you can see, people have not been sitting around, contrary to a few limited opinions that we see here and there. I think most people understand that our work has progressed in an effort to do a really good job at what we're going to attempt to do for all kids. And it's not just providing the resources, it's also getting people engaged and getting them equipped and having the literal and figurative bandwidth to do this. And so we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to provide some great opportunities for kids. We're going to get to the end of the school year and we're going to do a great job. One thing that I'm thinking about, and I'd like the board to just weigh in, that it might be helpful, you know, you've heard me say it a few times, I continue to kind of feel the disconnect as we talk about what's coming out from the district is we have a really important bridge in our schools. And so I'm wondering if for our update next week, it might be helpful for us to hear from a principal or two at each level so that they can kind of talk about what this looks like, both as they're leading their staff from a distance, like we are all feeling, and also just so that they can maybe answer a few questions and just talk about what it looks like from a school perspective to be engaging with families and some of the fun things that they're doing for providing good connection and information out from that vantage point. Would that be something you'd be interested in for our next meeting?
Yes.
Yes. In fact, I thought it'd be great even to have some of the teachers or some of the teachers also weigh in. Okay.
All right, hearing yes, school level, we'll talk about who that might be, but at least capturing kind of what this looks like from a perspective from a principal, and if we can gather a few teachers, the reality of this and them staying connected with their kids and families, I think would be a great thing to hear.
And across the grade span, it's really interesting.
Absolutely.
We've got different problems at different ages.
I'd be interested in hearing from a SPED teacher too.
Yes. I'm sure they will all be clamoring to be part of a board meeting.
Oh, I'm sure.
Of course.
We'll have some willing participants, I know. Okay, I think that does it then for our updates. I'll give it back to you, Siri.
Can I ask for a quick audible update on the daycare programs that we've been running for medical staff? How are those going?
See if Barbara wants to answer that.
Yeah, our daycare programs are, we are partnering with the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, and they are serving our families that need care. I last checked in with them on Thursday, and they're serving just a little over 100 families between 4 locations. And so we have that information on our website if parents are still needing care, and they can go to our website and connect with either the Y or the Boys and Girls Club for care.
Great. So that's fairly stable numbers from 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it might be.
Thank you so much.
Might be a little bit. I will just chime in on that as well. I'm glad you asked the question, because my concern, and I think that of my colleagues, is depending on what the closure trajectory is. Now the governor has effectively closed us for students on site for the rest of the year. If you begin to release the workforce back, we're going to have some decisions there. That also, back to Mark's question and what the governor might have been inferring, is there may be some limited ways to expand what we do to accommodate that need as things are loosened up a bit. I also know, though, the reality of that is schools were closed, and they made this really, really hard decision today, because we know that's just where a significant number of people are and the transmission factor. And so I also know that we're going to have to be cautious in how we would go about, making some of those accommodations, both for the expense as well as the practical management of the virus itself. But that's what I keep thinking about is what's the connection between the release of adults back into the workforce and the school closure with kids who are going to still be at home.
Right, and from the medical perspective, the surge, we're basically peaking right now in the hospitals, and so if we can make it till May, supporting the medical staff, that's all that I'm really worried about.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder too. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but could we have just an extra reminder to perhaps some of the healthcare facilities, remind them of the service we have for their students? I'm sure that, we hit that first wave that we went out with, but it couldn't hurt to do it again. God knows they were overwhelmed. It's probably the time we came out with that announcement. Now it might be good to do a second wave just to make sure we're not missing some kids.
Yeah, we've reached out to our contacts at Evergreen Hospital and the local healthcare centers, and they are aware of the links, and so.
Yeah, and those are.
I just thought, occasionally a reminder, so to speak.
Yeah, that's good, and those needs will change over time too, I think. And I lost my thought. It was pretty profound, I'm sure, but those are.
Your excuse has been busy.
Yeah, those are things that we're thinking about, and just the reality of all of this as needs change and as our guidance changes, we just want to keep evolving as much as we can. But I think that's what's been difficult, is just the evolution of this and the prolonged time. And that's the part that everybody now is going to deal with a little bit more. I know what I was going to say is I want to make sure that everybody understands this decision today made by the governor and Chris Rakedal is massive. And they know what this means for all of the related factors. And I think it just shows the importance that our state is placing on really closing down enough to make a difference. And so we just want to remind families that even though it's getting hard to continue to be isolated, it's more important than ever right now. And we miss kids, we miss families, we miss our colleagues, we miss doing all of those normal things. But I will say I was out walking yesterday with social distancing, and I have never seen so many family units out walking together. Multiple kids and parents, and it was shocking almost, and I thought, how sad is it that that is a shocking sight when you see family units walking around? But it's a good thing, but week over week, we know this is going to be hard for people. So stay connected in all the ways that we can, but stay safe so that this closure is worth it. That's what I want to make sure. We want it to be worth it, because this is no small thing that happened today.
If I can just follow up with the childcare, one more question.
Sure.
Is some of the additional comments that are coming out, and they mentioned it again today, as they know, was healthcare and first responders are sort of the top priority. Then there's also other essential workers out there that we speak to, of the pharmacy, the grocery store, and then there has been some discussion actually of children experiencing homelessness and the loss of some of that structure. And I know there are some districts that are helping to support childcare with those groups. Are we looking as this goes a little longer, what are other potentials of being able to expand that possibility?
I think so. Our partners have not said, I don't believe, and Barbara can correct me, I don't believe they have limited it to just healthcare workers. I think at this point it's open to whomever needs that. The tricky part in all of this has been the fact that our staff are also trying to consider their own well-being. And you know, I think at the time a lot of this was unfolding, it was so fast, and the guidance that would come out on one thing would be contradictory to guidance that came out very shortly next to it. So it was provide this service, but stay home, don't see anybody, limit contact, schools are closed. So I think if we get a sense moving forward that scientifically and medically we have a handle on this, we've contained to some degree, and at the same time we can begin to look at other options, we'll certainly do that. We're open to ideas, but at the point that we needed to do that, we didn't have the right mix of staff to do the staffing appropriately, and our partners have done a great job of that. That helps them stay up and running, but we can certainly make sure people are clear. And Barbara, do I need correction that they have not limited the population?
You are correct. They are open in not only to healthcare workers and first responders, but other essential workers and really anybody that needs care that they have space for. So
I think that's going to be a need, though, and it might even be those programs expanding their capacity in our facilities.
Yep.
And so
we have let them know that as their need expands, they can approach us and we can talk about expanding those services using our facilities.
Oh, good. Any other questions?
If I might add, yeah, I heard today that when we always think of this 5 or 6 professions or job categories that are essential folks out there. But I understand there's a much longer list, so I hope we're looking at the kind of the expanded list. I even found out that appliance stores are now considered essential services. So I only found that out because our oven went out. But so I think if we looked at the complete list to make sure that we're just not missing anyone, because I think all of our parents would appreciate that, because they know who's essential and who's not, really.
Right. Yep. Okay.
So I just wanted to weigh in one more time and let the seniors out there know we will acknowledge you. Some kind of graduation acknowledgement, and we are so proud of you. And keep working. I'll kind of slack off now because you're very.
Yes. I don't know if we all froze or if it's just
that
Cassandra.
Sounds really choppy.
Yes. I think what you're saying is don't stop now. This is a strange year. We're going to help you get through to the end and we're going to celebrate.
I'd also like for us to acknowledge some of the businesses that are starting to reach out and help seniors kind of commemorate their senior year. I noticed that our friend JD, who runs all the printing services in downtown Redmond, has reached out and is providing signs to congratulate seniors around the district. And for those that couldn't afford one, he's stepping up and providing one. I think it's a great thing. He's always worked with us on our bond and levies, and he's doing it now for our seniors too.
Yeah, I think we'll have some options, and I think it'll be interesting to hear what the kids are saying. My solution was just line everybody around the track with 6 feet between them and let them go up on a stage, but I don't know if my team liked that or not. But we want to hear from kids, and we'll get some ideas of how we can recognize them. And you know, this is a year like none other. If nothing else, they're going to be at their 10-year class reunion going, remember that weird virus thing that went through and made us all miss all of our fun stuff? And they'll be able to tell their grandchildren, I guess, about it. I don't know. That might be one of the long-term benefits that's not so great now, but in 10 and 20 years, who knows? It'll be a big deal.
So,
Yeah,
Jane,
maybe a
earlier
parade.
you mentioned the idea of
Mark, I'll hear you first and then Chris.
okay. I recalled earlier when you're talking about the kids reading to each other or reading to their parents or the parents reading to them, it kind of sprung to mind the Reading with Rover program we have in a couple of the elementary schools. It'd be great, since they can't read to Rover in classroom, get their own pets to read to.
Yes.
Because I think they all enjoy that sort of a program.
Yes, and I noticed on our walk yesterday I saw more puppies than I have ever seen before, too. So I think right now there are a lot more dogs in the home because everybody's home to potty train them right now. So yes, reading to a pet, reading to anybody is great. Chris, you had a comment?
Actually, it wasn't anything serious. I've got a senior in the house, but I did see a friend of mine who was a principal down elsewhere in the country, and her kids came past in a parade, one family per car.
Yes.
But whatever, we'll be creative, and we've got a couple months to solve this.
A lot of parades happening across the way. My friend is a superintendent in a very small town, and the entire town turned out for the school parade of teachers were in their cars and they drove around the entire town, which then basically captured every student. And so all of the kids came outside and got to wave to their teachers and see them. And I think we'll be able to do some fun things like that too. All right, any other comments, or I'm going to throw it back to Siri.
All right, looks like you're throwing it back to me. Well, thank you. So actually the next item on our agenda is, so appreciate the presentation where we're going and look forward to the continued work. And with that, we now are at any additional board member comments that you might have.
So Cassandra and I were having a
So Director Carlson?
Yeah, sorry. On the meeting chat, Cassandra and I were wondering, this is something new to us, and Cassandra was having some choppy connection issues, both ingoing and outgoing. And does it help us help her if we turn our cameras off too? I mean,
I don't know.
Audio is what matters.
Yeah, we'll check into that. I don't know if that's her internet or if it's our network. My guess is it's her bandwidth at her place. But what we might, for me, when I'm trying to do it at home, I have to tell everybody else to get off of their devices and to have no Netflix or nothing else streaming anywhere. And so that might be one fix.
3 teenage boys.
Yeah, good luck with that. But we might be able to see if there's a way to equip her a little differently to try and remedy that. Or she can come over here and be on second floor while I'm on first floor and be on our network here at the Resource Center.
Any other comments?
No.
Nope. Okay, there's just, Director Sage, do you have anything you'd like to say? Okay.
Now she's muted.
I think you're muted, Cassandra. Okay, well, we will go on from that. So what I would like to say is, just so you are all aware, WASDA, the Washington State School Directors Association, does hold weekly meetings with school directors around the state, as well as the State Board of Education is often, somebody from there is on there, OSPI, superintendents are welcome to be on there, and it's basically just a call to sort of go through where things are at, update where all the new things are coming from, and sort of share ideas. So you can go to the WASDA webpage, and anybody, you can sign up and register, and you can attend either Thursday night at 6, I believe, or Mondays at noon. And that's a great opportunity to be able to hear what's happening around the state and get some ideas that way as well. And that would be it. So with that, we do have an upcoming board meeting on April 13th, which I think the agenda was sort of discussed in regards to trying to see how this is working at the school level a little more effectively that way. And so appreciate putting that forward. And then we will also have one again on April 20th at 5 p.m. These will again continue to be a short business meeting with an update of sort of where the closure is at in that component. We'll also be dealing with some other things that have to come up that are routine that we must take care of. So monitoring reports, we're working as to what those will look like over the next 3 months with this new information today. That we are now close to the end of the year. That brings up another question of how we do our monitoring reports in regards to our operational expectations and results. So we're going to have to work through that in the next week or so, and so should know more by next Monday. And I'll give you an update then. So with that, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn our April 6th board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I think Mark seconded. Yeah, there we go.
So it's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Stewart that we adjourn. So all those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carried. Meeting is now adjourned, and thank you all so much for finishing our second virtual meeting. So appreciate all the work and making it all happen. Enjoy your week.
Good night.
Thank you.